record on this. Ooh, okay. So, gents, here's a guy that probably doesn't need too much of an introduction. Played against Messi, Rooney, Drogba, World Cups, Premier League, MLS, but also he's done what you've done. He's started at the point where it was you never knew what was going to happen, but grounded out and never lost sight of who he was and where he came from. And so he's also an owner of this club. Put his own money into this endeavor. More importantly for us, he's put his time in to help us make people aware of what's available. And you guys are going to be able to take advantage of 4, 5, 6 years of work that all of us have done. But here he is, the man, the myth, the legend from downtown Van, Jay DeMerit. So Jay, I'm going to probably mute most of the guys, but we will have some question and answer, I hope. But take it away, take it wherever you want to go. If you guys want to ask questions, you can poke them in the chat. But away we go. Thanks for having us. Thanks for coming on.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks. Well, I mean, obviously, a lot of you guys, some of you guys in the call, I recognize some names, people that have either come through my Rise and Shine programs or just with things I've done with TSS before. But again, it's always a pleasure for me to be in this group and to share my stories and experiences, because anyone will tell you that's what it's all about. If you're a young developing player, it's about hearing our stories so you can do a better job at not making the mistakes that we did on the way. If you're an older guy, it's about sharing as many of these experiences as we can, starting as many new things as we can, so our young players on this call can have an opportunity that we didn't. And so, again, I love being on these types of things. I do a lot of this because, ultimately there's a lot of experience within, me being so fortunate enough to be able to play in a World Cup and to captain teams in the Premier League and the MLS. And so with that, again, comes a lot of experience, but a lot of goods, bads, uglies, confusion, all the things that come along with the true soccer journey that all of you guys as young players are facing right now. If it was perfect for you, you probably wouldn't be at TSS unless you're a younger player coming up and ready to move on. But at the end of the day, you have an incredible opportunity to play for this club. Full stop. That's what you guys should be focusing on as young pros, is you have an opportunity to be in the window of professional clubs. So therefore, you have the ability to create your own story and therefore to create your own opportunity that allows you to go and hopefully do what some of the pros on this call have done. And that's play professional games in front of a bunch of people and feel like you're really cool. And that is the greatest gift you can ever give yourself, for one. But number two, and this is what I kind of want to call today, I do a lot of different talks about different things, leadership or, teamwork or, all of the other things. How do you be a captain? All these other things. And so I just got to thinking, as Will kind of asked me if I wanted to come on for this hour and just what would I talk about. And about a month ago, I got asked to go down and speak at the biggest coaches conference in the world down in Kansas City. It's called the United Coaches Conference. And they asked me to come down and speak because there's this kind of new word that they talk about a lot. And some of you guys through your programs may have heard of this term, but it's basically called self-leadership. And it's how you as players can take your stories upon your life and create your own journeys. And they call it self-leadership because generally as young people, you've had to learn to lead from other people. So you've had Will and Colin and Greg and all these coaches. They're like, yo, do it this way, or yo, do it that way. And here's how you do it. Now you're in our program. You wear our jacket. This is the way we play. This is what we do. And it's built into the academy programs all around the world. And that's normal. Okay. But what we forget about is that within that, we still have our own code. We are still our own players and we are still our own vehicles of development, especially at this stage, even at this stage as 18 to 22-year-olds, which I'm sure most of you are now. And so when they asked me to speak, I really had to go into my story because that's essentially what my story is. And I'm actually just going to share my screen now. Can everyone see it? Just a sec. Can you see it? Yeah. Okay. Let's see.
Yeah, I think Daniel Davidson is 81 now or something, isn't he? Isn't that what you are now, Danny? I'm just checking, just making sure, you know, we don't leave out all the different age groups. Carry on, Jay.
I love it. 2 secs. Okay. Oops. Okay, can you guys see this? Whoops. No, you can't. It's here somewhere. There. Okay, so the point of this, I don't know why this isn't advancing my slides now. Any idea? Obviously, I don't do this as much as I need to. Present slideshow. Any idea why that's not working?
What I do sometimes, Jay, is I actually download it as a PDF and then roll it that way if it's not working.
Is it because I'm sharing my, oh, there we are. Okay.
Hey,
Hang out of the way.
exactly how we
Okay.
planned it.
Yeah, here we are. Hey guys. Okay, so essentially, you know, what they asked me was, you know, can you come and talk about how you had to take it upon yourself? Essentially, what I had to do is that at 23 years old, I was playing in the PDL just like you guys are right now. I was 22 years old. I had a degree in design in my pocket. So I went to school for 4 years. I went to art school, got my degree, played Division I soccer for 4.5 years. Ended up being honorable mention All-American, getting talks that I get walk-ons at pros, and the Chicago Fire was gonna draft me. Neither of those things happened. I got offered a third division tryout in the US for 18 grand a year in not far from where I was from in my hometown. That was my only opportunity I had coming out of college. And so I was like, screw this. I know who I am. I know what I've done. I know my story. I know that I played 3 sports until I was 18. I knew I didn't play football. I wasn't a part of academy programs. They don't know my story. I'm going to take it upon myself to go. But again, because I had a million jobs, because I had a bunch of coaches, because I had, done a bunch of things from school and had a bunch of different experiences, I knew myself enough to really weigh up the situation. And I was very much on the cosh of like, okay, I got these opportunities. And I had one opportunity from the guy I played PDL with. He was an English guy. He was moving back to live with his mom in London. And he's like, do you want to come and live in our attic? And so again, I put that on my opportunity list. And I was like, okay, I got this third division team in America. I got these walk-on tryouts with MLS clubs. And I have this one opportunity to go play in a park in the 12th division in the UK. And so I weighed it all up. And in the end, I chose the UK because it was my best opportunity. And I knew that because it was the most concentrated place in the world. So if I know that if I'm going to get seen, this is a place I could get seen. I did know it has 480 divisions in the size of one US state. And so you're looking at, so many eyes and so many levels. But 12th division, I know I'm going to start small. I was making $40 a game. So I was getting paid, but I was getting paid in an envelope and it had 40 pounds in it, which is about 60 bucks Canadian. And so if you imagine what I was doing as a 23-year-old living in an attic, making $60 a game, playing in a field in front of nobody. And so that's where I was, but I also knew myself and I knew what I was good at. And so I started to be a player that was athletic, and I would take their best player and I would mark him out of the game. And then that kid that got released, from a professional club a couple years early, he'd play against me up front and I'd crush him. And then the next day the scout's like, yo, who's this dude? And I just knew that if I waited in line and I stayed humble in my approach, I asked good questions and I allowed myself to get better every day by being humble, then things would get better. And by the end of that season, I made the team. And by the end of that season, I got a third division tryout. And after the off season, I went home and came back and I got a first division tryout, made the first division team. Watford was my team. By the time I was done with my first season at Watford, I had played 30 games. By the time I was done with my second season at Watford, only 2 years pro, I scored the goal that got man of the match in front of 72,000 people at the Millennium Stadium. And I was a Premier League player. And I remember sitting there with the ball at halftime, or not halftime, at full time with this glass ball, and it says "Man of the Match, Leeds United, Watford FC," and going, you're going to the Premier League next year. Talk about what just happened. And I'm like, 2 years ago, I was sitting in a pub with my friends watching this game. And throughout that time, I had about 50 people in that stadium that day that were supporting me. And I said, over the last couple of years, I've had my parents who are in the stand support me my whole life to get to this moment. I've had a bunch of players I've played with over the last 15 years that are in the stands with me, and that helped me get to this level on the field. I had coaches that believed in me when no one else did and gave me an opportunity to shine. And because of all of those pieces is the reason I'm standing in here talking in front of you guys, being a Premier League player. And so again, the story goes is that these things can happen, but there's a formula to them. They don't just happen out of the blue, because if they did, you'd see it all the time, but you don't. And that's why there was a movie made about this story called Rise and Shine. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's not for me. It was paid for by the soccer community. They raised $250,000 on Kickstarter to tell my story and turn it into a film, because people like yourselves need to see this, and you need to see that these things are possible, but you need to see how and why. And so as I went down to the coaches conference, again, to talk about what it's like to captain in the MLS or the Premier League, or what's it like to play in a World Cup, win a Confederation or, Gold Cups, and all the things I've been so fortunate to be able to do in my life. And a lot of it comes back down to the self-leadership piece, is how was I able to figure this out? How was I able to take it upon myself to create my own story? And that's what self-leadership is. And so by definition, self-leadership is the practice of understanding who you are, identifying your desired experiences, and intentionally guiding yourself towards them. It's what we do, it's why we do it, and it's how we do it. And so essentially it's everything. It's this all-encompassing journey with a lot of moving parts that we probably don't think about a lot. And especially as you guys are young players starting your journeys, I want you guys to think about this. That's why I'm bringing this to you today, because you're on your own. At the end of the day, you got Will to help you. You got Colin to help you. You got Greg to help you. You got all the other coaches to help you. But at the end of the day, this journey is uniquely yours. And you have to remember that from the start. And so they're not going to do everything for you. You have to take it upon yourself to get the most out of this experience. And so again, that's down to you. We as players, ex-players, coaches, we are here to help. We are not here to tell you how to do it. And we're not here to give you the hand and give it to you. And so as I went into my journey, I knew that, and I knew I was standing in the back of that line. And so I knew I didn't have anybody else. And so within that though becomes kind of the formula of how it all works. And so as I researched a little bit more into the subject of self-leadership, I found out more of why and how. And essentially it comes down to two guidance systems. You have two guidance systems inside of you. One is the relationship of the game that you play inside your head. So that's a you versus you conversation. What do you say to yourself? How do you say it? How do you accept information? The inside game is all about mindset, and mindset is so important to your performance, but it's also important to where you go. And then the second part of it is actually the outside game. And so this is the rest of the world. This is how you interact with players. What's it like when you walk into a big stadium? How do you talk to the people below you? And how do you talk to the mentors above you? All of this stuff is outside influence. But in the end, you can't get to outside game until you have mastered your inside game. And so the order of things comes in 4 ways, and these are in order, because you have to be able to understand yourself before you can ever start to learn how to lead from others, how to receive information from others. Because if you don't know who you are and you're not aware or confident or believe in what you're doing, you're never going to make it in the first place. And so this first side, the inside mind, is what you have to concentrate on first. And it starts with intention. Intention is purpose. Why am I here? Is it because I want to make it pro? Is it because I want to hang out with my bros? Is it because I want to stay at a university and get my school paid for and save my parents and me a bunch of money? All valuable, all totally valid in whatever it is that you want to do, but you have to have intention for what it is that you're going to do. What is your big dream? What is your biggest goals? If you don't have intention of how and why and what you're doing, then then you need to figure out a new place to start, because it starts with the why. How do you create the focus? I like to say dream big and think small. Think of the craziest shit you ever want to do in your life and put it there, but then go all the way back to the beginning and start thinking small. How am I going to get there in small increments, small goals, so small visions that maybe someday I can do the crazy things no one else thinks I can. And so that starts with the intention. So think about that. Set your goals, set your visions. I'm sure you guys have talked about visualization, goal setting, all these things that come along with being young pros. But when you think about it, make sure that starts the focus. Why am I here? What do I want to achieve out of this season? What do I want to get out of myself for this? Next, it goes to self-awareness. Because now that you know where you're going, you got intention of why you're doing it. The next thing is actually starting to become aware with who you are. And again, that's your relationship with yourself. You could be aware of your surroundings, but that's different. That's going back into the outside game of that things that you can't control at your time. So the first thing is this whole self-awareness piece. How do you know what's going on inside? And so that's understanding your values. Most values are created by where you're from and who you're supported by. Your values are there, well, we're this kind of family, or this is the type of person that I am. But understand what those values are. Know your personality. Are you the funny one that likes to crack jokes and keep it light? Are you the one that likes to show people that you want to win that sprint at the end so you can show the players that you're fit, or you can show people that you want to wear your heart on your sleeve for this team? Cool. All of these things are valid to what you're trying to bring to the team. But if you don't know who you are in the person, if you don't know who you are and what you bring to the team, you're only giving yourself half the environment. And now thinking about the environment in yourself, you have to understand that each environment is different too. There's a reason why you don't paddle out into a wave in Hawaii and just hop right on the wave, because the environment would say you got to get in line with all the people that have been sitting there for 20 years in Hawaii and waiting in line for that wave. It's the same as walking into a team. And so when I moved to England and I got my trial with Watford, there I am, first division team, walking in the locker room. I didn't say a word. And it was on purpose, because I didn't feel like I had earned the stripes enough to be the Larry American in the locker room. I understood my environment. I understood that people would feel under pressure because their job is now at risk and professionals would get paid to play. And so I sat with the kids. I sat with the U19 team. Again, I was 23 at the time, but I was a rookie. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But I knew that I had to wait in line, and I knew that I had to respect the environment, because I knew people in England knew a lot more about the culture, the tactics, and the history of the game than I did. And so I sat there and waited, and I worked hard behind the scenes, and I asked good questions when no one else was around. And I would ask the captain what else I need to work on when I'm coming off the field after a hard training session. That stuff is knowing your environment, respecting your environment and the people in it, that will allow you to, again, continue to navigate your path in the right way. The next is now that you're starting to be aware of what you are, now you got to start practicing who you are. And so that's where self-confidence is bred. If you guys are players that aren't confident, go back to step A, get to know yourself and understand what you're good at. Now start to practice it, because once you start to do that, now that creates confidence. Because if you've tested your capacity, you know your energy management systems, you know what type of player you are, you know how long you can run because you've done X amount of sprints to know that you can carry that for 90 minutes. You know that you're a good player. You like to take it in on your left and hit it first time to that low corner. Cool. That's a great stop. Okay. That's a good strength. You know, you're not really great at track and back because you want to go and score the goals. I know I got to get better at my fitness to track back for 90 plus minutes because I'm a holding midfielder. I know that I'm a good set piece taker. So I'm going to be on set pieces. I'm going to hit that thing 4,000 times after training, and I'm going to hit it right at that near post every time. And I'm going to do it 5 times in a row before I leave the soccer field. When you learn by doing, and you learn it by understanding what your strengths and weaknesses are, that is where the self-confidence piece starts to creep in. And so think about that as you guys go out on the training field every day. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? If you don't know yourself, ask your coaches, ask your teammates. Say, like, do you guys like it when I bring it in with my left foot? Do you guys like it when I whip it in with my right? Whatever it is. And so that's where the confidence starts to breed in. It's this everyday training that allows you to really get the confidence of who you are as a player. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And if you don't know, or there's somewhere in between, practice them. Now you're practicing, and now you're getting confident because you're like, damn, my left foot is getting good. I've scored 3 goals in the last 5 games on this near post header because I've been working on that near post run, because I like beating that defender on the inside. I know that's one of my things. Now, again, corner taker's whipping him in because he's spent the last couple of days training on that spot, and all of a sudden you're scoring goals, and both of you guys are crushing it. Again, that's with intention, that's with practice, and now with purpose. So what happens next after you got confidence is you create belief in yourself. I can break this team. I can be I can be all conference. I can make it to the MLS. I can make it to the Premier League. Belief is created by confidence. Confidence is to be created by the work and the understanding and the awareness that allows you to create that belief. A lot of times you go out, and if you don't actually believe it, a lot of times it won't work. And you guys have seen this, I'm sure. Many times you've been, oh, we can do that. And you're like, well, did you train hard enough? Are you actually prepared for this? Did you do your work to make sure you're ready for this game? If it's not, you probably don't believe it in the first place. But that belief is truly created by understanding who you are in the awareness piece, and then unlocking that self-confidence that, hell yeah, I can do this. I believe that I can. And a lot of times when you believe, you will. And so that's kind of where the last pieces of self-belief come in. Ask questions, keeping perspective, staying positive, practicing self-care, talking to yourself, going, no, you know what? I didn't have a very good game there, but next week I'm going to go out and crush it. I'm going to do an extra work. I felt like my fitness wasn't good. So real feedback loops are real on how you create this belief system. And if I'm not taking things personally, I'm being creative in my approach. I'm trying new places to get more fit. I'm trying new ways I can bend the ball around the wall. I'm trying new ways I could approach a player for a tackle. I'm staying open-minded in my approach. I'm asking Will and Colin after training every day, like, what'd you think about it? Do you think that I should stay more wide? Do you want me to come back in? Like, how's my communication? Do you think I could talk a little bit more? What do you think? Again, this is just perspective, but it keeps this whole concept of understanding and how we create belief systems. And that's a collective too. If you're talking to other people, if you're asking good questions and you're practicing care for yourself, you're staying positive throughout it, even in the bad stuff, a lot of times this belief will start to come because good things will start to happen. So these are the 4 steps of the inside. Okay, I have intention. I know who I am. I'm aware of what I'm doing and why I'm here. I've created confidence because I'm training every day. I'm working on my weaknesses. I'm showing the world my strengths. I'm being proactive in my approach. And now I got belief that I can go and make this team. Now I got belief that we as a team can win 5 in a row. Now I got belief that I can go and make it to the next level because I talk to myself about it. I stay positive throughout it. I'm creative in my approach and my opportunities are starting to come. So now you can see how this starts to add up into the next part. Now I have this strong brain. I got this mindset that I really, really like. Now I got to go share it with the rest of the world. Things I can't control as well as things I can. And so this whole point of like, now that I'm aware and confident, now I can start to have influence over the others that are in my crew. And so these are the 2 things on the outside game that you got to focus on: influence and impact. And again, these are in order too. So the influence piece comes when you find support, when you ask for support, when you seek mentorship. I don't know if many of you players have player mentors, guys that have been there before, your coaches, people in the game that can help you with your approach, give you feedback after games, even if it's just on how, you create a better mindset. All of these things are true in mentorship. And I had big center backs in front of me as I became a young pro. I asked a lot of questions to the older players, the guys that had been there longer than I had, guys that have played in bigger games than I had. I had a guy named Melky Mackay who ended up being the only player to be promoted 3 years in a row from the championship to the Premier League. And he was just a big old center back and loved the game. And he taught me how to read the game. He was my roommate for almost a whole season. And so there I was, 23-year-old rooming with a 34-year-old guy. But I think back those times in the conversations I had on our road trips and the way that he taught me about the game, taught me how to use my voice and communicate on the field. A lot of the things that the old guys, you don't know. I didn't know those things until I got old. And as I started to do the same thing to young players as I got older here at the Whitecaps. And I would suggest that you do that, seek that out. I would seek out a mentorship if I were you. Again, gaining perspectives, asking questions, looking for leadership opportunities, looking for job opportunities, not just for what you're doing to work, but also just what else you're doing off the ball. And I like to say that, and anyone knows me, I'm a very social guy. Some people think that's a negative, but I'm telling you, in my life, it's been nothing but positive because I don't fuck up the first part. You play well, you win, you do well, you lead, you grow in your game every day. You can go out and be social if those things are happening. I want you to go out and be social when those things are happening, because this is how we grow the community. This is how you get people to care about you. And this is how you get people to care about the team. And so I would suggest that, but don't go out if you get tanked 4-0 and then go out and be an idiot. Like that's dumb. Don't do that. But open up free time, understand what your hobbies are, because this is how you as players and you as a club can influence your community. Again, be smart, but be respectful, ask the community questions, sign autographs, and stay there till every kid has one. And then go back in the locker room and talk to your buddies, because this is part of the reason of how you can have influence in your space around you and how you continue to get more out of your self-leadership and what you want to get out of your experience. So now you have impact, influence. You've asked the community, you're in it, you're part of the things that are bigger than you. You're trying to seek mentorship. You're even talking to kids that are younger and you're trying to help them in their game. So now that the impact is the result of a lot of these things. And so that's how your intentions and your influence are measured is how do you impact it? How do you take your experience and then give it to the world? And how do you have that world accept you and say, hey, I want to support TSS. Those guys seem cool. Or, hey, I want to come because I get to play beer pong on the side of the field. Oh, I want to come because I think the players are great for my kid. And they all stayed around and they signed autographs and my kids are coming back next week. Hell yeah, season tickets next year. That's you having impact based on your influence in the community. And so think about that every time you come into the office, every time you come into these games, and think about things that are bigger than you, because this is how you have impact. And then all of a sudden some coach will call and be like, hey, that's center back. He seems like a good player. Do you think we should take him? And like, actually, yeah, like he's a really good guy around the community. He's always stays around and talks to the younger players. He's a really good player. I would take a chance on him. Like, you guys, this conversation happens all the time with coaches and scouts and all the things. And so I would have a deeper thought about how you influence and how you can impact the people around you. And so, but the last thing is this thing, impact is the rewards we get. And so these are like, do you get the captaincy? If you are, that means you're doing something right. You get the goal scoring crown, or you lead the league in youngest player in the league with 10 goals. You're the youngest player to keep clean sheets. You're, the team has won 5 in a row and has got team of the month in the USL too. Whatever it is, you guys, the impact is how we get these rewards. And so monitor those too. Are you guys winning games? Are you guys winning trophies? Are you as individuals getting individual accolades that make you feel like you're big and maybe could move on to higher leagues? These are the results of a lot of these things. And a lot of the practices that allow you to get to these reward opportunities. And I would look at those as opportunities, but monitor, are we getting accolades for our work? And if the answer is no, then I would say that you got to change your work. Okay. And that's basically it. I mean, in all honesty, I want to get to what you guys want to know too. And this is fun, telling you what I know about all these other things, but, in all honesty, I think I want to know what you guys want to know. And so that's kind of the formula. That's how we use it to help you understand your own journey. And again, I have this slide. If you guys want this deck, or you just want to take a look at it, or have more of the formula so you have it on your computers, or you want to look at it deeper, just let me know. I'll send it to any of you guys if you want it, or send it to Will and you can distribute, because it's just a nice framework. It's a nice reminder, and we all need reminders in our lives. And you guys always don't want to hear from your coaches, or your parents, or people that actually, and I can tell you, because I've been there and I've captained thousands of players over my years. And I can tell you, the ones that have good self-leadership, the ones that go with inside, they don't really need anybody else. They don't need the coach to tell them they play like shit, because they're already in the car going, I'm going to go home and I'm going to go to train because I played like shit today. We don't need the coach to tell you that if you have good self-leadership, if you're aware of your performances, and if you know that what you're doing is a greater collective of all of us. And so, I think that's the real key to this whole self-leadership piece. But if you want the formula at the individual, because it's got to start from you. The rest is bonus land. Again, it's got to start from you as players. And this is the formula to get you started. Yeah.
Jay, outstanding. I just add a little anecdote there. The old guys here that are hanging out on the Zoom, inviting Jay to talk to you guys, are guys that sat down at a pub and brought out a napkin and said, let's build a soccer club to make a difference. And the reality is we didn't know what we were doing, really. We just knew we believed in what needed to happen, and on a similar front. So we're all on the same journey. And it's always nice to hear someone who's done it and does have the formula and continues to do it. So, first of all, appreciate the time there, Jay. It's fantastic. And guys, you have an opportunity here for the next little bit to ask any questions. If you do want to ask a question, you can come off camera off and put your camera on, or you can just type something into the chat. But be brave. It's an opportunity to say hey to a former Whitecaps captain more importantly, a Premiership player if we're talking about the global game, but also a guy who's literally committed the rest of his life after retirement to mentoring people like us. So ask away, gents, if you have them. If not, we have this on record, so we can send that to those that weren't here, but also to you afterwards as well. Anybody got anything? Any coaches got anything? Go ahead. Jay, I got a question, because I know this is where the world rubber meets the road. Just sitting in an attic and you're having a down day, a day where, I'm not sure it's going to happen, or I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe speak to a little bit of that adversity side. How do you keep going? What are the things that you had a bad game, you had a bad training session, you just don't know what's going to happen next? Where do you take solace, and how do you start from that point?
Well, I mean, first is to understand that they're going to happen. There's no such thing as not having one, or the games that don't go your way, or the time you're ready to clear a ball and it goes in the top corner of your own net. Like, we've all had them, and they're going to happen. And so when you come into the equation knowing that they're going to have it, it does make it a little bit easier when it does. And I don't mean like go out there and expect to fail all the time. That's not the point. The point is that when they happen, make sure that you know that they're coming. And so what I like to say about these types of moments is just understanding that there's two ways to look at, what you're doing. One is like what's in front of you. And then the other one is like if you're holding a balloon and you just floated up 20 feet and you got to watch what's going on below you. And so the one in front of you is the one that you could just have to do every day. This is what I wake up, I got this in front of me. This is my day. Some days that it's going to be a fist. Some days it's going to be a trophy. Some days it's going to be school. Some days it's going to be your mom. Some days it's going to be your buddies. And in the end, you got to deal with that every day. Those are the days where some days it's not going great, and whatever that is. And so that's going to happen. So that's your day to day. But in the bird's eye view, this is the one where you really have to put a lot of focus, but don't do it every day. That's what this one's for. Do this every day. And that's going to be every day. Every day is different. But every now and then, and I would say probably monthly, I would grab that balloon and I'd look up, and I'd go up and I'd look down at myself, and I would look at what have I done. Did I start every game? Or if I wasn't starting, am I now starting? For me in those times, it was how many days a week did I train? If I was training 3, I'd be like, I'm not doing enough. Get back down there in my day to day and get back to training. If it was like, okay, I'm doing 5. Okay, cool. Now I've made this team. Or by the end of that first season of non-league, on paper, in front of me, it said, I'm still a non-league shitty player that doesn't have an opportunity in front of me. That was the whole year. So the rest of the world's going, you suck. Mom's going, why don't you come home and get a fucking job? Everyone else is going, whatever, right? But that's them looking in front of me, right? But if I'm pulling on the balloon and I'm like, whoa, when I started this season, I was playing in the 12th division. I wasn't even a starter in that team. By the end of that season, I was a starter, a contributor. And by the end of that season, I had 2 third division tryouts. 2. Didn't make either of them. One of them tried to sign me. I didn't have my visa. Either way, super positive, super positive. And so if I grab the balloon, I'm not going to look at, oh, I failed again. I look at, I've jumped 7 divisions and I got tryouts coming. That's positive. That's a bird's eye view where I'm like, this was a shitty day. I didn't make that tryout team, but look how far I've come in 8 months. And so focus on that type of thing too. Like don't always be in the balloon either, because you still got to be up and wake and deal with your shit every day. Like that's a prerequisite of how you got to get up and work and stay consistent. But how you work on that consistency, how you look at the approach, as long as the approach is still going like this, I keep doing it. If I pull the balloon and I'm like, damn, it's been a year, I got no opportunities. I've asked 5 coaches now over the last 5 trials, and all 5 have said no. I've been injured. I haven't been taking care of myself. Maybe this isn't for me. And that's cool, because there's something out there that's better for you anyway, if that's the result of what you're trying to do with your work. And so I would focus on that. Keep a big picture, think small, don't take personally what's going on every day. Just when you pull that balloon, if you're still going in the right direction, if you're still moving forward in your approach and your intentions and whatever it is that you're there on that field to do, again, go back to step A. Am I aware? Do I know why I'm here? Do I have confidence in my abilities? And do I believe I can achieve whatever it is I'm achieving? If those are yeses, then keep going where you're going. You just had a shitty day.
Hey Jay, it's Colin here. Being an American player, going over to England, and having to live with the fact that the majority of the players are looking at you thinking, what the hell are you doing here? Go back, go play NFL football or MLB baseball. You're not for this game. When I talk to people about the stuff that you and other players have gone through, I always try and twist it around. And I say, think about, the Vancouver Canucks having some guy come to their training camp who's from London, England. What would be the first perception of that player? Right away, the hockey people would say, what's he doing here? Right. So I'm sure there were some moments where people were kind of looking sideways at you, like, go home. How did you cope with that?
Again, yeah, there's a couple ways. One is to respect that environment, is to say, yeah, 100%. I can't wait to show you. I can't wait to show you how this works. But agree with them. It wasn't like, well, I'm going to show you. Like it wasn't any of that, because in a way they're right on a grand scheme of things. We got a lot of work to do, but they don't know me and they don't know my story. And so that's what I always came back to in those moments of, should I say it? Should I be it? Or should I respect the environment and show them? And that's the best part. It's this whole concept of don't tell them, show them. And I'm sure you guys have seen it on the million Instagram things that you've come through, but it's true. And I say it all the time because this is truly where my mindset always went. I could sit here and tell you my ideas, and Will and I talk about this all the time. I could sit here and tell you my ideas all the time, but I could also create my idea and show you what this idea is. And you can say that as the same as a metaphor of a player. I could sit here and say I want to be Ronaldo, or I can work my ass off every day to get the opportunity to become him or something like him. And so I always like to show people what I was doing, and I didn't talk much then. I talk a lot now because I have a lot to say and I have a lot of experiences to explain. But back then, I didn't talk much. I let other people that knew what they were talking about talk, and then I would listen to them and apply to what they were saying, but doing it in a way where, again, I know myself, I know my story, I know what I bring to this table, I know what I'm good at. So I'm going to start there, and then I'm going to learn how to talk, and then I'm going to learn how to become the player that I would, and then I'm going to learn how to be a starter at this team, and then I'm going to learn how to be the captain. Each of those is each step of the way, but at the end of the day, it's still this attitude to understand. You might say this about me, but I'm going to show you something different. And then the second part of showing don't show them because you're trying to prove them wrong. Show them because you are trying to prove yourself right. Those are two very different mindsets, because if you get caught up in what other people think and you get caught up in what other people say, you are living on their terms. If you stand up to what people say and you show them differently because you're right, because this is what you believe and this is who you are, that's a totally different conversation, because I am showing you who I am. I'm not saying, haha, I told you so. If I create intentions, eventually, that's way harder, because I'm worrying about what you think, and then I'm worrying about what you're going to think the next time. If I'm worrying about you all the time, I'm not giving myself the service that is seriously required to go and do crazy stuff like play pro and play in these leagues and do the things. You know what I mean? That's where that self-belief comes in. And I think that really is the key. It's just, when you try to do things that no one else thinks you can, do it and show yourself to do it, not to prove other people wrong. Okay.
Hey, anybody got a question in there?
There got to be a couple. Even like good stuff, like who's your favorite player to play against?
Yeah, I got one actually that I've been meaning to ask you for ages, but we end up with a load of players in this country in North America who have gone on to degrees, and they end up they've gone through the university pathway, and they end up as quote unquote old players. in a world of young players. You're always too old and you're always too young, right? Other guys that maybe got ignored or late bloomers. We see these stories about Jamie Vardy and whatnot coming down the pipe, and they're 26, 27 when they finally make the show. What kind of advice do you have for guys in that sort of world? They're coming out of university just like you did. They're already in our game considered to be on the elder side when on paper, and paper means nothing, but how people's perception is about all this shit. What kind of advice do you have guys who are taking a shot and still wanting to get out there and make it happen? And because I believe in those guys, and I want those guys to have as much a shot as an 18-year-old.
Yeah, well, and again, you just got to look at history to know that those things happen all the time. They do. And again, I was an example of that. I know a lot of people like me are. Jamie Vardy, again, being a great story of most recent times. And part of it is understanding the story and understanding your story. Where is your history? Are you a kid that did a bunch of things, and then all of a sudden you're like, you were a volleyball player or a basketball player, and all of a sudden at 20 you're like, damn, I got a cool opportunity to play soccer. I'm going to get back into it. So by 23, I'm actually back to a rookie, but I'm old. And that happens. I would say, sometimes you might get stuck on a team where a coach might not play you for a season, or maybe you went to the wrong university and it took you 2 years to realize that. And then now all of a sudden you're trying to find it again. And you find yourself back on the road, but it's harder because now you got guys in front of you because you took a different path. That happens all the time too. And so the first thing I would say is to make sure you understand your individual story and make sure you're paying attention to it. Going back to kind of like, what are the results? What are the impacts that I've had in my career? Where am I going? Am I still going in the right direction? Have I asked enough people to understand it fully? Have I done enough of my work to know that what I'm capable of? Have I put in the time to know exactly how good of a player I can be? If you've exhausted all of those answers and the answer is still no, again, there's nothing wrong with looking at a path and saying, that was awesome. I got a lot out of this game. Now I'm going to go make $14 million next year, being a finance expert, working for some high performance person that knows that I just got 20 years of soccer experience and I know how to lead and I know how to listen. That's cool too. And at the end of the day, that's worst case scenario, right? And that's why I like to say young pros, worst case scenario is that you got to pro level, you must be doing something right. You don't get to the level, even anyone on this call, you don't get to the level you're at by being shitty at what you do. It just doesn't happen that way. That's why you're picked. So again, take confidence in that no matter where your path goes in your life. You'll be fine if you do what got you here. And that's, you're on time, you work hard, you get better, you ask good questions, you're a good teammate. All of these things are intangible for your future, no matter what, whether it's in the sport or whether it's in something else. That's what matters. And that's what you should always take at the worst case scenario. And that's, you don't get picked and you don't think you have a future in the sport. Cool. But the other side of that is, are you paying attention? Are you asking the right questions? If you're moving in that right direction, what are my next opportunities? Again, part of it is that I had a college coach come to do one of my camps in Wisconsin, and he talked about his recruiting. So he recruits people, 17 to 20 from all around the world. He's an Irish guy. And so he recruits from Europe a lot. And he's like, Jay, he's telling the kids, he goes, how many calls I got from players last year on my phone that said, hey, I am X from this place and I really want to play at your university. Do you know how many calls that guy got in a whole year? Zero. So he's like, I'll tell you what, if some kid called me and just said, hi, I'm this person, I'm from this place, and I want to come and play for you, he said, I would literally give one scholarship to that person, because they are doing things, A, that other people aren't, and B, they're taking it upon themselves to create their own story. And so think about that on the days where you feel like you don't have opportunities. Think about that on the days where you don't know what to do next. The answer to me of that thing is get creative. Because there's opportunities everywhere. There's places you can stay involved. There's ways you can improve your game in so many ways. And going back to your original question, Neil or Will, about which age, you could have an 18-year-old with 2 years experience playing against a 23-year-old with 1 year experience. That happens. But I would definitely say that that 23-year-old has a greater life experience than the 18-year-old. So use that. Know what it's like. If you're 23, you're going to have skills that an 18-year-old doesn't have. But if you're 18, you might have skills that the 23-year-old doesn't have. Maybe you don't have 4 years of wonder and mental health of wondering if I'm going to make it and pissed off the other people young. There's lots of things. So again, use them with each other, not use them against each other would be my guess of team dynamics. And but for you guys too, as managers, it's, managing those relationships, understanding that a 23-year-old and an 18-year-old should get along in so many different ways, but they don't necessarily because they weren't in the same class and they don't talk to each other because they're different players. Like, I don't believe in that. I think we can gain so much of our stories and our ability as an individual from the other people around us that are different ages. So I would tap into that if I were you as young players, tap into the guys around you, find out what their stories are.
Give us your hardest player you ever played against.
Hardest, funny. I was talking about that today. It was Didier Drogba was the hardest. I had Messi. I talked to Messi. I post about things sometimes because everyone always talks about how small they are. Like, they're always like, oh, I'm not going to make because I'm small. And I'm always like, well, the smallest player on the field 1,000 times has been Lionel Messi, 1,000 times professionally. And every time he's been the smallest. There hasn't been a player, and I don't care who's been smaller than him, because I've stood next to him in the tunnel and this dude is seriously below my shoulder height. And so all these kids that tell me all the time that they're too small, or, oh, my son's not going to make it because he's too small. I'm like, no, your son just has to figure out another way to make it. It's not because of his height. It's not because if his foot speed is as good as the younger guy, or if he can turn the ball better or faster than the tall guy, he'll make it, but has he figured out how to use his feet? Has he figured out how to use his first touch to his advantage because he's got a slower or a lower center of gravity? Or, has he figured out how to touch the ball around somebody with his first touch because, he can affect that and get to that ball a little bit quicker, you know what I mean? Or spin faster to get to the next ball around it. Yes. You know what I mean? But we're not looking at that because we're built from a system that says you're too small. And for me, that bothers me because I had to learn so many things about how to defend, how to use, tactics, how to use my body weight, how to use hand checks to make guys on corners miss the ball with their heads. Like, you just got to figure it out. And I think we don't do enough of that, but I think it's up to us from the institutionalized creators to let our players be themselves and learn those tricks on their own. We can be there for them. We can tell you little tricks. I can tell you how to hand check, on corner kicks and how to do it without grabbing a jersey and all the other stuff. But, you just got to be creative in your own approach. If you're a center back, what are you doing in a game? Are you doing enough drills that mimic that? So on game day, it's like second nature, or are we just doing 4x4s and pass around the back, and then tomorrow we're going to defend? You know what I mean? I used to do a lot of things. I used to stay back with my physio because he loved throwing the balls and doing the things. And so he was like our little assistant physio. And so he used to stay around with me all the time. And I used to do things that mimic my movements in the box. And so I'd set up cones. I would fall down, go do a little footwork, fall back down, slide, get back up, do zigzags in the box, and then clear my box to the 20-yard box. Not only would I have fitness, I would work on the footwork that I actually do in the middle of a game. And then I would go and use a little bit ball when I'm tired, and he would throw balls to me. And in a way, I'm not doing that as an individual in the training because I got training to do with my teammates. That's the stuff you got to do after training. That's the stuff you got to do on your own, because it's mimicking what I had in my brain of what I was seeing on a day-to-day basis. If I'm missing my tackling, I got to work on my timing. I got to work on my footwork and my approach to the tackle. It's not the tackle itself. It's the other ways. It's the other people and the other things that are allowing that tackle to be a yellow card instead of me smashing the dude into the stands and having the fans go crazy. That inch is everything, but how I approach that inch, my speed, my footwork coming in, the way that I can affect his first touch by affecting the pressure and the amount of space I can give him by reading the game a little bit faster. All of those things is what I was thinking about every day. What am I doing? What did I learn from this thing? Am I getting feedback from my things? I have people watching my tapes or watching set pieces and being like, shit, I knew that guy was going to come forward. I guessed, and he pulled it on the back because he saw me guess. Don't guess anymore because that's not good for me because I'm giving up goals. You know what I mean? But until I watch it and I realize, shit, I did guess there. I wasn't playing the man. I got ahead of myself and I shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean? But it took me sitting down, watching the tape with the coach and be like, shit, I fucked up, coach. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I'm not going to guess anymore. I'm going to stay more front on, and I'm going to be touch tight and hand check that dude so he doesn't get that goal. That's feedback, but that in a way is me going, I need to refine my game. That wasn't good enough. And so I need to figure out how to refine my game and do it in a way that's built for me, because I know I still play against guys that are like me, but they're still not me. They don't have the footwork that I do. They don't read the game the way I do. So you think about that as you guys look at their approach to your game and figure out and be really finite and detailed as to how you approach your own individual training.
Cool. Last question. Who person, coach had the most influence on you and why?
Two. One was well, three. One was each level. One was Brett Hall, who's in Chicago. He was the first coach, again, because I came from Wisconsin. I was a small town kid, went to big town Chicago and started to play at a higher level. And I didn't know how good I was. I was just a kid from the cornfield. And he was the first. He was an orphan. He played for the Chicago Sting for many years. The best like motivator I think I've ever seen. And I just remember he pulled me after training one time because he knew I was going to Europe. And he goes, dude, he said something along the lines of like, I respect your bravery because 99% of the kids that are in this thing would never even try it. And he goes, I had the balls to come here as an orphan and play in the biggest league back in the NASL days. And no one thought I could do it. And I slept and did the things. And I was living in host families and doing things because I thought I could. And he says, and I see that in you. And he says, when you leave, just know that there's people here supporting you. And so I left Chicago as a 23-year-old with that in my brain. And so that really helped me when the times when I'm living in an attic, making $40, feeling like a piece of shit. But those words rang in my head. And so you need coaches like that are going to believe in you when no one else does. When I made it pro, 80 Boothroyd, that was our promotion year coach and the year we were in the Premier League. He was a great man manager. He understood that all of us were different. He put his arm around us all a lot and asked us how we were, asked us what was going on in our personal lives, asked us, challenged us, asked us about the certain games, certain things that happened in a game. I thought you could have done this better. I thought you were awesome at that today. I thought that, I saw you walk straight in the locker room because you were pissed off you got subbed. Why'd you do that? You know what I mean? And why didn't you stay and sign autographs to the fans? You know what I mean? I thought, we're trying to create a community club here and I need you to do that. I need you to stay and not worry about yourself. Having those hard conversations with the manager isn't always comfortable, but I'll tell you what, by the end of that season, there's a reason we got promoted because all of us believed in him and we knew he cared about us. And that goes a long way. And so I think he taught me about my own belief systems and taught me that I could be a bigger player than I was. And then lastly, Bob Bradley, mainly because Bob stuck with me. There were more popular players in front of me. And when Carlos Bocanegra and Oguchi Anaewu, he was at AC Milan, Carlos was playing at Fulham, and they were the big names. They were the big name center backs for the US national team. And Carlos got injured and I got 3 games where I could play next to Gooch and we really complemented each other. And we had 3 really good games. We won all 3 games and I got to play in the Confederations Cup against Argentina, or against Brazil, Italy, and Egypt as my first 3 starts for the national team. And so in South Africa in their winter. And again, I've been waiting 2 years for those opportunities. So I wasn't scared. I was the captain of my team in the Premier League. So it wasn't like I hadn't been in big moments or scored or had moments where I could take confidence into those games. And I did. But when those 3 games were over, again, this is when we played against Spain. So with 3 games were over, Carlos is back. He could have put him right back in, but instead he dropped our left back and stuck with me. The name no one knew because I only played 3 real games for my country. And he's like, no. He's like, he looks me dead in the eye. He's like, Jay, I'm going to stick with you. And he's like, I'm going to move Carlos to the left. Johnny's gonna sit on the bench. And he's like, because I got faith that you and Gooch are my best center back partnership. And to have him take faith in me when I knew I wasn't the popular opinion, for me, gave him a lot of respect. And I think it's hard for coaches to do that sometimes, especially in the higher you go and the more media attention you have. You start dropping the stars, you start telling people that this isn't the way it works. They'll call you on that. But again, the proof is in the pudding. And so then we go on and Carlos moves to left back, and we snapped Spain's winning streak, and we beat Spain, snapping their 35 game win streak, and then lose 3-2 against Brazil in the Confederations Cup final for the world to see. And I had 6 games in a row, and I became the starting center back of that team because of those moments. And, you know, Bob didn't have to stick with me. He could have stayed with the popular decision, but he did. He stuck with his teammates. He stuck with what I brought to the table. And thankfully I was able to prove him right, and do what I did. And we went on to, you know, again, win our group for the first time. We were the first time an American team won the group in the World Cup the following year. I got to play against arguably the world's best player that year, Wayne Rooney, in the England game, the best game I ever played in my life, and playing against the world's best player, because he had just gotten Premier League Player of the Year for Manchester United that year. And if you ever watch that game, he didn't get a sniff. And that was me really just exercising my opportunity to be in those moments and do my job. And that's what I did that day. And, you know, it was because of Bob Bradley's confidence in me that I can go out there and have those performances. And so I would say him, as far as like the last coach that really kind of gave and helped me understand me and who I was.
Cool. So in that game, when Rob Green had that absolute howler and let that ball in from distance, what were the first words out of your mouth?
Oh, well, I got to call my agent, because it's funny. The story goes is that Rob Green and me were my agent's only players at the World Cup. It was me and Robert Green. And so my agent was in this, like in the stands, like going like, what? I got like one player over here, and then I got the other one throwing it into his net. He's like, call me back later. I don't know how to deal with this situation.
Okay, well, listen, out of respect for the fact that we could talk to you all day long, Jay, and that you've been on probably 15 of these today, because Azteca is about to get rumbling. We're gonna call it a day, gentlemen. I'm gonna tell you this right now. You know, I'm fortunate to have a bunch of friends on this call. The information being passed over to you is free, but it takes take it on board. And one thing I would say about this, whether you didn't ask questions or you wanted to ask questions, or you might have an opportunity, and these don't happen all the time. One thing I've learned in my 50 years is to be brave. Okay. We're going to need all of your bravery to go out and win a league, and to show you guys off. And so hopefully you've learned something today. We'll send it out to those that didn't watch, but remember, always take your opportunities. If you have something that you wanted to ask me now, and I'll pass it on. But hopefully we'll have our friend, owner, and former hero of Watford come out to a couple games and maybe even a session or two, and see us in the flesh. He's done that before, and he's a busy man, and we appreciate nothing but his time right now. And thanks for your friendship, mate.
Absolute pleasure, guys. Again, I'm not hard to find. If you guys, again, I'm here to support you guys in a mentorship type of role. So if you have questions, don't hesitate. And otherwise, I will see you out at Sunny Swangard soon.
Thanks, pal.
Thanks,
Have
guys.
a great one, gang.
Thank you.
See you later.